Before we recognize Ms. Mace for 5 minutes, I request unanimous consent for the representative from Georgia, Mr. Clyde, to be waived onto the committee for purpose of questioning without objection to order. Chair recognizes Ms. Mace for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank our witnesses for being with us today. And crime is rampant in our nation's capital. It's rampant and out of control, like many other cities in the United States. During COVID and now after, crime is up significantly. In D.C., I read that homicides were up by 9% since last year. In fact, there have been more homicides in the first 120 days of 2023 than in the same period of any year in the past decade. We're starting summer, so tourism's going to be up. Violent crime consistently peaks from around the country this time of year as well. And at the same time, the D.C. police force has lost a net of 450 officers over the last 3 years, or almost 15% of the workforce. Mayor Bowser, I do want to recognize what you've done to give bonuses and try to hire police officers to the force. I myself have been a victim of some crime here in D.C., not once but twice now since I've come up here. And, you know, we see this kind of thing around the country, and it's very important that we address it. And we can only leave to the imagination the kind of impression that the rampant crime that's up here in D.C. leaves on the country, to folks who come here from around the country and around the world to see the United States Capitol. We have foreign dignitaries, we have tourists, and we want to project strength and peace and safety for folks who are out here. D.C.'s out-of-control crime must be taken seriously and must be addressed as swiftly as we can. My first question today goes to Mr. Graves, and I have a few yes or no questions. Mr. Graves, do you think the D.C. Council's crime bill that I voted to override in this chamber would have led to an increased officer retention and hiring? Yes or no?
Increased officer retention or hiring is the question?
Yes. Would it have led to better officer retention and hiring? Yes or no?
I'm not sure it would have impacted one way or another. I don't know.
Yes or no, do you think the public should be aware of the crime happening around their neighborhoods and take it seriously?
So we are very much focused on community safety. Part of our community safety
Do you think, yes or no, the public should be aware? The question was, public should be aware of crime happening in their neighborhoods?
Yes.
Okay. So you agree, it's a good thing when a citizen reports something they saw, like see something, say something?
Yes.
Yes.
Generally, we want law enforcement or our community members to report crime of which they're aware.
Right. So a couple of days ago at the DC Safety Summit, you said just going out there and kind of fear-mongering and making broad claims that aren't born out of data is not helpful, and I think we unfortunately see that from non-traditional media sometimes. So yes or no, do you think having this hearing today is fear-mongering in DC?
So I appreciate
Yes or no, do you think that this hearing is fear-mongering in DC based on your comments from a few days ago?
So it's not
yes
a yes
or
or no.
no?
It's not a yes or no.
I don't know.
I can answer your question, Congresswoman, but it's not a yes or no question.
It is. I asked it. Yes or no, do you believe it's the job of a prosecutor to represent the government and to prosecute crimes on its behalf?
Yes.
Interesting. So then why are you bringing only a third of the cases brought to you? Why is the DC Police Chief Conti literally calling bullshit on your excuses for not prosecuting 67% of arrests? Was he fear-mongering?
So
is your chief of police fear-mongering when he calls BS on your prosecution?
Of course our chief of police is not fear-mongering, but I think you're taking quotes out of context, and if I could provide the context, I'd be happy to explain.
No, I'm not interested in that. I'm using your words directly verbatim from you. I want to finish with this afternoon. D.C. is a lot like Charleston. It's a city that has a lot of charm. It's a city by which many Americans judge our country. We have a high rate of tourism in Charleston, South Carolina. And Charleston takes its crime seriously and has built a community that many want to visit, many want to join, just like Washington, D.C. But the same cannot be said of D.C., which saddens many of us here today. And I want to recognize, Mayor, again, for your efforts with your police force to add more police. More needs to be done, and I'm sure that you recognize that as well. Thank you, and I yield back.